After the foreskin is cut off, frequently hospitals will sell it to skin bank companies where they use it in commercial products. It's like a large industry, and it's one of those things that I think makes people uncomfortable because you're taking something from someone's body, like you're selling human body parts. There's a huge ethical issue there, on top of all the other ethical issues with circumcision itself, right? But I don't have any data there, so if whatever you have is...
Well, so hospitals don't like to disclose what they do with it. So most of that comes from hospitals, right? If it's done at a private clinic, they'll often just discard it in the biowaste. But at hospitals, they have a large supply of it. So research hospitals like Georgetown University, they actually give it to researchers who want to use human tissue because it's a really available source of human tissue. It's otherwise hard to get your hands on, particularly keratocytes, skin cells of all kinds. So, and then it's also used for burn treatments, which is, obviously it's valuable to be able to treat burns well, but you can, create clonal tissues or things like that instead. And so, I don't know, you could put a continuum of how gross the use is. I couldn't get any data about how much the hospitals make off of it, in which cases it's donation, in which cases it's sales. I just could trace research papers that credited the universities the university hospitals for donating the tissues.
Yeah, as you can imagine, hospitals are not very transparent about a lot of this stuff. This is something I found when I was working on the film, trying to get into that environment to film and potentially interview people. I definitely had some phones hung up on me while doing that. Yeah, because it's not something that looks good for them.
Is that the sort of information that would come out in Discovery?
It might. That's a good question. See, this is what someone was asking earlier about ideas. So I know when William Stoll, who's the one who did the circumcision lawsuit in the film, when he did that, he learned a lot in Discovery. It was that process that led to him finding out that his mom had not given consent for the procedure. He learned that the doctor who did the procedure was intact and thought that parents were dumb for doing this, but he was making money. There was a lot of things like that came out in the lawsuit. It was also during the height of the Catholic Church, pedophilia scandal, and it was a Catholic hospital it happened at. So some people have said that part of the reason he may have gotten a settlement is because he was talking about someone from a Catholic institution touching his body in a way he didn't consent to, and they were not okay with that press in the midst of everything else that was going on. They were like, please, let's just get this out of the media. We don't want you talking about this. Here's some money, go. And so that's an interesting idea. It is the kind of thing that might happen, and people in the movement have certainly talked about using lawsuits as a strategy. And one of the things that the lawyers who appear in my film have said is that, culture moves first and then the law follows. But that's an interesting idea because you might find things in Discovery, and it sounds like in that case you're not using the lawsuit to change culture, you're using it to get information, which maybe would work, I don't know.
Just to comment on the history, you're not allowed to abuse your children, but you used to be able to in this country. And that lawsuit that generated that change in the law came from somebody that saw children being abused and realized you can't abuse a farm animal, a cow or whatever. And so they said, if we can't abuse farm animals, why can we abuse our children? And that was the argument that worked. So the law, it works in extremely non-logical ways, but we're stuck with it, right?
Yeah.
If this was logic, it would be done.
Right, exactly. One of the things that William Stoll talked with me about is that part of the reason you now have to get a consent form for circumcision is because a Jewish couple sued a hospital for doing a circumcision on their child because they wanted to do the circumcision in a religious ceremony. They said this hospital violated our religious right to do a circumcision 8 days later. And so now hospitals have to get a consent form. And you wouldn't think that a Jewish couple wanting to do a religious circumcision is what would actually move the issue forward. But now you have to get a consent form, and if you have to get a consent form, the parents go, oh, well, let me think about this. And then now they search online, like, oh, let me look up this decision before I make it.